to thank you for being here today. My name is Chip Wall. I'm a very happily out gay man who's married. I am referred to as a he, a him. We have two beautiful children and the best grandchild on the planet Earth, Gavin. Thought I'd throw that in there. I want to thank each and every one of you thank you for coming here today, here at Fountain Street Church's very first celebration. We're going to call it our annual Pride Celebration. And we're beyond thankful to some of the organizations who have partnered with us here today. They include the Grand Rapids Trans Foundation, Grand Rapids Pride Center, HQ, the Red Project, Free Mom Hugs, Arbor Circle, and the Grand Rapids Drag Brunch. You'll find some more information not only in your bulletins, but if you'll stay with us afterwards and join us in the social hall following our celebration today, you can get more information, you can get coffee, you can get really good Costco cake, which everybody's excited about. And you'll also get a little better input as to what these organizations are doing within our community to make it a better community. So we encourage you to stay afterwards. June is the month. June is the month which we in the LGBTQIA+ organization call Pride. In fact, it's called Pride the whole month, and today we're here to celebrate us, whether you are gay, whether you're straight, whether you're bisexual, lesbian, transgendered, asexual, intersexual, demisexual, non-binary, or, well, I think you get the idea, don't you? Whether you're a member of this community, or whether you're here just to celebrate with us as an ally, or just here for this day of celebration, we welcome you to this day of not only reflection, but also to celebrate and look into our future. This is a day to recognize not only the struggles that we've had in the past, our triumphs of today, but also for our hopes of what may happen in the future. So today, we're going to take you on a little journey. We're going to take you on a journey, and those of us that have been on the planning committee have chosen to explore the pride of what we call yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So as they say, let the celebration begin.
Queer people is as old as the history of any people. It is also a tale of struggle and perseverance that persists to this day. The law of the United States had no concept of discrimination or hate crime as a basis for sexuality or gender identity. Law enforcement could not be counted upon to protect and serve members of the queer community. LGBTQIA+ people were often arrested simply for the description of lewd conduct. Lifetime of injustice, protest, and violence culminated across the United States, culminated in the Stonewall riots.
The Stonewall was operating without a liquor license, since the New York State Liquor Authority didn't give out licenses to establishments that served gay patrons. Police officers entered with a warrant and started making arrests. Onlookers began to harangue police in an effort to disrupt the scene. As the crowd reached hundreds, a full-blown riot ensued. 10 police officers barricaded themselves inside the Stonewall. The crowd then proceeded to set fire to the barricade. More police arrived and dispersed the crowd, but that didn't last long. Over the next 6 days, passionate demonstrations continued outside the bar as thousands of people showed up to express their solidarity with the LGBTQIA+ community.
The attack on Stonewall was the breaking point for those looking to advance queer political activism. It is often treated as the birthplace of the gay rights movement, largely from the contributions of Black and transgender people. The Stonewall riots, as they became known, made one thing clear: the LGBTQIA+ movement needed to be loud and needed to be more visible. Nothing was going to change if they continued their passive tactics. It was time to get organized.
Later that year, activists proposed that a march be held in New York City to commemorate the one-year anniversary of the raid. When they were looking for a slogan for the event, it was L. Craig Schoonmaker that suggested Pride. In a 2015 interview, he explained, "A lot of people were very repressed and didn't know how to come out and be proud. The official chant for the march at the time became, 'Say it loud, gay is proud.'"
Their efforts came to fruition on June 28, 1970, the one-year anniversary of the Stonewall riots. There were no parades with floats. There were no blaring music in the street. There were no colorfully clad dancers. This was a political statement and a test. What would happen when the LGBTQIA community became more visible?
Across the country, similar demonstrations were held, but it was far from easy. Organizers faced obstacles including excessive discriminatory costs and outright threat of violence. Over time, these protests evolved into what we now celebrate as Pride Month.
This month marks 50 years since the Stonewall riots. Across the country, in that time, queer people have made remarkable progress, from the landmark case granting equality for marriage in all 50 states to third gender options in government documents in just 9 states. We count ourselves blessed and privileged for the successes that we have had, but we are also keeping a keen eye on the successes that need to be.
Tears are in when you're on the street, when evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I'll take your part. Oh, when darkness comes, friends just can't be found. Like the bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. Sail on, silver girl, sail on by. Your time has come to shine. All your dreams are on their way. See how they shine. Oh, and if you need a friend, well, I'm standing right behind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down, like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay
We are the survivors. We are at the intersection of yesterday and today. These are our stories.
Sorry. My name is Electra. I was born Joshua Rosnowski in a very conservative town with a very conservative religious family. I grew up knowing that I was different and that I didn't fit in. I had bigger dreams than what the town that I lived in could accommodate at the time. Around my teenage years, I started to identify what it was that made me different. And I came out as a gay man to my conservative parents. I was quickly told by the household that I lived in and the household of faith that I grew up in that because of who I loved, that I was no longer lovable. and I spiraled 100% out of control. I was still trying to complete high school. I was couch surfing. I was without a permanent residence, without a permanent home, just trying to do the best that I could do. And in that journey, I moved in with a dear friend of mine who introduced me to the art form of drag. The ability to take something and manipulate it into something beautiful rather than shameful or embarrassing. The art of drag gave me, typically drag is an art that involves pantomime, but somehow it gave me a voice and allowed me to grow in strength and love. And through the drag community, I realized that there's the family that you're born into and the family that you find along the way. And as I started to heal my wounds, come back to my religious faith, as well as the hope in humanity around me, I realized that that place of despair was not a permanent place for me. I encourage anyone out there who feels isolated or alone or without hope to find your tribe, find people that identify with you, march to the beat of your own drum. Don't be afraid to celebrate yourself and celebrate others, because it's only with the power of other people and the enablement that your friends and loved ones are going to give you that you're going to be able to overcome any obstacle that the world may throw at you. Today, I stand before you very proud of who I am, very strong in what I know, and very, very happy to be here today with all of you. Thank you so much for welcoming me in. It's good to be home.
Everyone has a story to tell, and for those who do but are not able to be here, I am honored to be sharing a fellow member's story with you today. When asked to write my story, I struggled with what to write. Do I tell the story of my coming to terms with my feelings toward women and how I hid it from most everyone for years out of fear of rejection and disappointment? Or the story of coming out to my family and the many discussions around sexuality that followed? My mother arguing that it wasn't right because God made a man and a woman's body to fit together, and two women don't fit. My father worried I would never enjoy the privileges of marriage, which was his way of speaking of sex, and a sibling who told me I was too pretty to be gay. Looking back, I see now there were some early signs around my sexuality. I had a major crush on Christy McNichol's character from the show Family, and in 6th grade, I would look for any reason to stay after class just so I could be around my female phys ed teacher. I had boyfriends in middle and high school, very nice guys. I just didn't connect with them the way I saw my friends connecting with their boyfriends. I found myself always wanting more. I was 19 years old when I first met the person who would become my wife, and the attraction was primal and instant. We were at a mutual friend's house, and she was surrounded by a group of people most of the night. I wanted to know her. Our eye contact was brief, but I kept her in my peripheral vision all night. When the crowd thinned, we went for a walk. It was harvest time, and the sun had set hours ago. I don't remember what we talked about, but I do remember being hyper-aware of where she was in relation to me on that walk. 10 years later, as living 600 miles apart, we ended up at the same party, both with our significant others. We danced wide circles most of the night, but I was keenly aware of her presence. In 2001, living back in Michigan and working, she called me at work and asked me out for dinner. I was super nervous and excited all at the same time. This would be the start of our relationship. Fast forward to today. My wife and I, who took our first walk together 34 years ago, were legally married in 2014. We have a daughter in early adolescence, bringing us new ways to grow and learn every day. My life is full and challenging and rewarding and frustrating, and I wouldn't change a thing. My story is not that unusual. It is a universal story of two people finding love, regardless of how they identify. Love is love. It is universal. The heart knows what she wants, and fortunately, love wins. These are our stories. They've not always been easy lives to lead, but they are beautiful, unlike any other, and certainly worth living. In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Thank you.
And I'd like to hear a word or two from the Grand Rapids Trans Foundation. Come on up. Come on over here, comrade. We have worked together before, and today's offering is on their behalf. So let's find you a microphone that works. I like the one in the middle, don't you?
So my name's Zimon Kidak. I'm non-binary and I use they, them pronouns. And I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Grand Rapids Trans Foundation. We're a grassroots nonprofit. We're completely volunteer run. And we were created by and for trans people here in Grand Rapids. We're thrilled to be a part of this Pride celebration at Fountain Street Church. Fountain Street Church has been a really great ally. They've shown really tangible allyship over the past few years for our organization specifically. They've given us a grant, they've hung trans flags, they've sought out our expertise, and they've allowed us to hold our board meetings in the space for free for over a year now. So we thank you for that. It's really great. So at the Trans Foundation, our primary focus is granting academic scholarships to trans and non-binary students that are going to school here in the area. As you may or may not be aware, the trans community as a whole faces some pretty challenging things, including some pretty high rates of family rejection, discrimination, assault, violence, depression, suicide, poverty, and homelessness. Unemployment rates in the trans community are twice as high as the general population, and trans folks are 4 times as likely to be living on under $10,000 annually. So it's a community that's impoverished overall. So our organization really believes that by removing some of these financial barriers to quality education and some of the other things that trans folks need, that we can help reduce these rates and help trans folks thrive. And no better place to start than in our own backyard. So we chose to be a hyper-regional nonprofit here in the area. So over the past 4 years, we've been in existence. We've granted over 30 grand to directly to trans folks here in the area through scholarships. We basically, almost all the money that we get in, we push right back out into scholarships. Again, like I said, we're volunteer run, so it's a really good use of money to get money in the hands of trans folks. Our organization has also partnered with the Pride Center annually to host Trans Day of Remembrance and Trans Week of Visibility events. We've partnered with GVSU's LGBT Resource Center annually to host trans and genderqueer free clothing events in the area. And this year, we're also thrilled to be expanding our personal programming to include name change microgrants to help trans residents with the costs and bureaucracy associated with updating their names legally. We haven't made an official announcement, but keep your ears peeled for that. It's coming soon. So anyway, yeah, we're just dedicated to removing the obstacles that hold our community back and affirming the enormous potential that we see in our community. And we hope to level the playing field here in Grand Rapids a little bit better. So we appreciate your continued support. Thank you again for having us. We hope that you'll come and visit us over in the gathering space after the ceremony. Stop by our table, say hi, sign up for our newsletter, and all that. Anyway, thanks for having us here. Thank you.
And our offering every week goes back out to the community. And this week it's going specifically to the Grand Rapids Trans Foundation. So I want you to dig around in whatever you carry your money in, okay? And whether it's got paper or whether it just clanks, I want you to put some money in because we can help trans folk in our neighborhoods. People you already know live the lives that they deserve, and you can stand up for them. So on behalf of every trans person in Grand Rapids and thereabouts, dig down deep and give hard so that we can really build the community we believe in. Your offering for the Grand Rapids Trans Foundation, but for all of our good, will now be most gratefully received.
Good morning. That wasn't the plan. My name is Christopher, and I'm one of the ministers here, and I get to serve along with Fred Wooden, and I'm one of the many wonderful queer folk on staff, and I'm not the first, and I'm not the last. What a great place to work, huh? Just as yesterday was imperfect, today has its challenges as well. Homosexuality is still illegal in over 70 countries in the world, and in 11 of them, you can be put to death because of it. 28 states still allow discrimination based on sexual orientation or your gender identity, and Michigan is one of them. Since the election of President Donald Trump, violence has increased for trans folk and queer folk across the country, both documented and undocumented. As of April 12, 2019, transgender individuals can no longer serve in the United States military. And for the past 2 years, the White House has failed to recognize June as Pride Month. For the first time, Trump acknowledged it in a tweet this past week. Transgender and non-binary folks fight for the right to use bathrooms and some pronouns, while people who identify as demisexual, bisexual, asexual, and so much more continue to fight for visibility and validation in a world that still doesn't even grasp gay all the time. The intersectionality of the queer community and the world around us presents new challenges that make today pivotal for LGBTQIA+ history. But as always, in the face of adversity, queer folks and their allies continue to find opportunities to thrive. On May 20th, Chicago elected Lori Lightfoot, a black lesbian, as their mayor. Over 150 openly queer candidates were elected to office last year in the midterm elections. Right. From Billions to Batwoman, social media, film, television, and all other forms of mass media are increasingly populated by individuals from the LGBTQIA+ community, and Pride celebrations have grown into massive successes across the globe. Let us not ignore the small miracle that we are all here today, gathered without fear of violence or retaliation. We're allowed to exist. We're allowed to stand on the shoulders of the people that went before us, happy to be basking in the sun of a day that tolerates us, and if we're lucky, accepts us all for exactly who we are.
Our first conversation was on Facebook, and it was 3 days long. We shared over 3,000 messages between us, and it was during those 72 hours that I knew she was going to be my wife. We didn't rate any prerequisite amount of time for our courtship. We told each other the vulnerable truths up front. I am a transgender man, which means the F on my birth certificate should have stood for false instead of female. Walking around as a woman in the world felt like walking with pebbles in my shoes. You know, it took the rhythm out of my swagger. It threw me off balance. It pained me with every step I took forward. But today, I'm a man of my own intention, a man of my own design.
I am a cisgender queer woman. Cisgender means the gender I was assigned at birth is still and has always been female. This doesn't make me natural or normal. This is just one way of describing the many different ways that we exist in this world. And queer is a cultural term, but in this case, it refers to the way that I'm not restricted by gender when it comes to choosing partners. I've identified in a few different ways, as a bisexual, as a lesbian, but for me, queerness encompasses all of the layers of who I am and how I've loved. I'm layers and not fractions. And for me, the fact that he was queer meant that I could trust this courtship from the very beginning. As queer and trans people, we are so often excluded from institutions and traditions. We create spaces outside of convention, including the conventions of time. And in those 3,000 messages between us, we collapsed time. We queered it. We laid it all on the table with no pretense at all. And this meant that we were able to commit to each other in a profoundly different way.
We have marginalized identities, but we don't live marginalized lives. Being queer and trans is about creating new ways of existing. It's about loving people as they are, not as they're supposed to be. Kim is unapologetically feminine in a world that is often cruel and violent to women who are too proud and too free. And I didn't enter into this union under the auspice that she was going to be my helper or my rib, but a fully complex,
right? That's not right.
But a fully complex human being whose femininity wasn't for me to rein in, control, or critique. It's her brilliance, the way she leads with compassion, and how she never loses sight of her empathy. She has been my hero since day one.
I love him whole, pre-transition, now, and in the future. And it's this love that had us committed to each other before we'd even seen each other's faces.
My mother's biggest concern when I transitioned was who was going to love me as I am. Had being transgender somehow precluded me from love and monogamy because I was supposedly born in the wrong body? But it's this type of structuring that has to be reframed in order to let love in. My body never betrayed me. and my body was never wrong. It's this restrictive binary thinking on gender that said that I didn't exist. But when we met, she loved me for exactly how I showed up. She would trace her fingers along the numb keloid scars left by my top surgery, scars that run from the middle of my chest all the way out to my outer torso. She said that these were reminders of my strength and everything that I went through and nothing for me to be ashamed of, so sprinting towards her hand in marriage was the queerest thing that I could do.
I think of the words of Ottawa-based poet Brandon Wint. Not queer like gay, queer like escaping definition, queer like some sort of fluidity and limitlessness all at once. Queer like a freedom too strange to be conquered. Queer like the fearlessness to imagine what love can look like and to pursue it. We open up little windows into our relationship for our community to bear witness, and we do this because we want to make maps to the future and not monuments to ourselves. Our experience does not invalidate other people's experience, but it should and necessarily does complicate this idea of what love and marriage are supposed to be.
The possibility that we are practicing is about reinventing time, love, and institutions. We are creating a future of multiplicity. We are expanding the spectrum of gender and sexuality, imagining ourselves into existence, imagining a world where gender is self-determined and not imposed, and where who we are is a kaleidoscope of possibility without the narrow-minded limitations masquerading as science or justice.
I think about our acronym, LGBTQ2SIA, a seemingly endless evolution of self and a community, but also this really deep desire not to leave anyone behind. We've learned how to love each other, and we've committed to loving each other throughout changes to gender and changes in spirit. And we learn this love in our chat rooms, in our clubs, in our bars, and in our community centers. We've learned how to love each other for the long haul. Thank you.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out.
As we used to say in church when I was a kid, can I get an amen in here? Amen. Wow. I gotta settle down. Good job. That was fun. It's impossible for us to know what tomorrow is going to bring for each of us, but we do have hope. We hope that tomorrow is the day when asking for pronouns is simply just a part of introducing yourself to someone. Sure. We hope that tomorrow is that day that we no longer assume someone's sexuality or their gender. We hope that tomorrow is the day that we no longer assign children a gender before they can assign it to themselves. We also hope that tomorrow pride is going to be considered outdated and totally unnecessary because we no longer feel the need to prove our validity to straight cisgendered people. We hope that tomorrow is the day that homophobes, transphobes, and bigots of all kinds are ostracized and punished instead of elected to public office. And most importantly, we hope that all of us, queer or otherwise, understand that it's going to take more than hope to achieve equality. It's going to take action, difficult, radical action, to get tomorrow that treats us all with value and dignity, regardless of our identity. Thanks to the energy and passion of today's LGBTQIA++ people, and the unprecedented landscape in which we exist, the potential for queer progress is immeasurable. The internet alone has given rise to all new opportunities for queer people to not only to connect, but also for us to organize. The very concepts of sexuality and gender are being changed and transformed right now at a rate that we never dreamed of or even considered in the past. The future has yet to be written, but seeing the energy of all of the queer folk that are here on this planet here today, we know anyone has to be optimistic. We all have to be optimistic with what's in store for all of our futures.
All right, folks, almost done. Almost cake time. Hang on. Okay. A little late for me to introduce myself. I'm Danny Heck. I'm the AV coordinator here, and I worked with these bozos to make this happen. I sincerely hope that each and every one of you has felt welcome today and has enjoyed yourself. I just want to give a couple shout outs. One, to the planning committee. It consists of, this is myself. We got John Spalding, Chip Wall, wait, I have my list. There we go. Chip Wall, John Spalding, Colleen O'Leary, Amy Preston, Kim Plant, and Christopher Rowe. They're the real heroes. Thanks to Fred for letting us uplift our voices. It's very important. True ally right there. All of our volunteers, all of our organizations that are here today, including the GR Trans Foundation, the Grand Rapids Pride Center, HQ, the Red Project, Free Mom Hugs, the Arbor Circle, and Grand Rapids Drag Brunch. Thanks to them for coming. Thanks to our volunteers who are here today. Thank you to Virginia, to Connor, to Cliff, to Tabby, to everybody. You guys are amazing. Thank you for letting us make this a success. So, now that we've reflected on yesterday, today, and tomorrow, what do? Well, to the allies in the room, I have a suggestion. Understand your privilege. It follows you wherever you go. It informs your every move. Allyship is not an achievement. It's a lifelong endeavor towards battling oppression, and it's a growing process that takes a lifetime to cultivate. For the queers in the room, let's reclaim the life and liberty that has always been rightfully ours, and finally be free to pursue our happiness together. As you know, cake in the social hall. Go forth and be gay.